Hello and good evening. I'm LinaCreated,
And I'm Cleo Badashian.
and welcome back to a brand new episode of DopeDilla TV Radio.
Yes, where we showcase and discuss creativity, art, and reality unboxed in 2024. And we are quickly approaching the end of the year.
Yes, ma'am, and it's been quite an eventful one.
And you already know we had to chime in and let you know what we think about all the craziness that's been going on this year. So we're about to get into it. But before we get into it, hit that theme song.
Dope dealer, vote bigger than your nigga. You gon' feel it when I hit you with the 1, 2. Dope dealer, vote bigger than your nigga. You gon' feel it when I hit you with the dope dealer, vote feel it when I hit you with the.
Yes, ma'am. And first things first, we do have our announcements from November, a very pivotal one. We are going to be talking about the 2024 election, the presidential election in the United States. Yeah, it was quite a tumultuous one, a lot of contention going on in the population over who would be the winner out of the Democrats and the Republicans.
Yep. It was very interesting. It felt like it was like watching a show. You had Kamal over there doing it, smiling and not saying she's black, but insinuating it very hard. And then Trump over here saying, "We're doing away with all those flags and the glitter and all that craziness." He's like one of those old white dads. He doesn't want to hear all the they them stuff. Just can we make some money? Can you behave yourself, please? Don't embarrass us.
Right, right. And so basically what really went down at the end of the day, Donald Trump wound up being the winner, both for the popular vote and for the electoral vote in the electoral college vote. He won both, and it was kind of a landslide victory. It looks
Yeah.
um Donald Trump got 312 electoral votes, where Kamala received 226. So, if you don't know, the electoral votes is basically the votes that are counted for each state, and there are 538 total. And out of the 538, you need to have you actually to win the electoral vote, you have to win 270 out of the 538, right? And obviously Kamala lost by almost 100 votes. So
Wow.
yeah,
Big number.
I know it's crazy, and it's sad, but a lot of people had their hopes on her winning. But unfortunately, she just couldn't pull it out. It looks like there was a few reasons, like a few obvious reasons why Kamala did lose the election.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about her lacking the ability to clearly and concisely articulate her policies. Um, and then a lot of people cited her current performance as a vice president, because she's currently the vice president of the United States. And a lot of the things that she's done or not done has gone against her as well. And then also there was this whole controversy about her race, and it being a whole like point that people were making about why we should vote for her just because she's a person of color or quote unquote black. So
Hmm.
yeah, there was that. So there were a few reasons why people didn't really like her. She didn't come across as likable, and she just wasn't very articulate as far as people were concerned. So
Well, I'm gonna tell you guys a quick story. When I was in elementary school, I found out there was a presidential election. I didn't know nothing about it. I was one of those kids in school that was aloof. I just stuck my posters up on the wall the day of, and I went up and made a speech, and none of the teachers expected it. I said, "Free, free this and free that." Everyone was excited, and then they really gave it to me after. That's that's kind of what this was like. It's
yeah.
like, okay, where'd she come from?
Oh,
No policies. Well, yeah, she don't need policies. We're not. This isn't serious. You guys got to pay attention. You
mm,
know what I mean? The main thing about Kamala was what's her race. That's it.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's
And
all.
black people calling her black. And that's my sister. She never said she was black. Y'all just assume because they played mind tricks. They said Jamaica had to talk about collard greens on camera. She said her favorite word was MFA with an A. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? And then the whole college thing, what with the asymmetrical cuts and everything,
yeah.
you know? Hey, listen,
Went
I'm
to
gonna say
black
what I feel about
college.
Rachel Doval. As long as you do it, if you're gonna pretend to be black, but just play it straight over here. I'll let you in, but just play it straight. Do something.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she went to a black college. She went to Howard University. She has this ambiguous look. She had a black haircut. She hanged out with black people, including Montel Williams, who we all know.
Mm-hmm.
And she just had the history. So there's a lot of it that sold it for a lot of people, but for other people, it didn't really sell it for, you know what I mean? That's not good enough because you could be Jamaican and be an Indian, a full Indian.
Yeah. It was for the simple-minded folk.
Yeah,
That's exactly what it seemed like. It was
yeah,
for the simple-minded folk.
yeah,
It's not for the people that were serious.
yeah.
Oh.
I've got a little video that I found about some of the reasons why she may not have won. So I'd love to play
Okay.
that for you guys and see what we think.
Of her economic policy agenda yet. In the speech, Harris announced her intention to create a, quote, opportunity economy by building up the middle class, and advocated for, among other things, a sharp increase in house building, a ban on so-called price gouging, and generous tax benefits for families. So in this video, we're going to take a look at Harris's economic policies, why parts of the media don't like them, and why they'll probably go down well with voters. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So let's get straight into it. As we see it, Harris articulated basically 4 big policies last week, which all tell us something about her economic policy platform more generally. The first of these was to do with medical costs, or more specifically, how to lower them. Here, Harris wants to accelerate and expand a Biden administration effort allowing Medicare and other federal programs to negotiate with drug makers to lower the cost of prescription medication. This is sort of what happens in the UK with the NHS, and the thinking here is that the federal government will be able to negotiate the lowest cost from drug makers, because the size of a Medicare contract will incentivize drug makers to lower their prices. Harris hopes that these measures will cut the cost of some of the most expensive and most commonly used drugs by as much as 80%, starting in 2026. Harris also said that she wants to cancel a further $7 billion of medical debt for up to 3 million Americans. Harris's second policy of note relates to support for families. Specifically, Harris wants to restore a COVID-era $3,600 per child tax credit and introduce a new $6,000 tax credit for the first year of a child's life. Now, these policies should go down well with the electorate, both because, well, who doesn't like tax credits, but also because there's a growing sense that having children is becoming too expensive in America. It also contrasts nicely with a policy proposed by J.D. Vance back in 2021 that's since resurfaced, where he advocates for higher taxes on childless people. Even though these policies are essentially two sides of the same coin, they're both tax incentives that encourage having children, and we should say that Vance has since come out in favour of a tax credit. The optics are obviously very different. Harris's third policy is about food prices. Here, she's promising to send Congress proposed federal limits on price increases for food producers and grocers to combat what she describes as price gouging. This is perhaps a policy that's attracted the most attention in the media, and most of it's been negative. Outlets like the Washington Post have dismissed the policy as an ineffective gimmick, arguing that price controls don't actually bring down prices, but just lead to shortages. Now, we're not going to get into this in too much detail here, but there are basically 2 relevant questions. First, have corporations used rising inflation expectations to increase prices disproportionately? And second, do price controls work to prevent this? With regard to the first question, there is some evidence, much of it compiled by an economist called Isabella Weber, that at least the large corporations have used the general uptick in inflation to justify price rises, even for goods that aren't directly affected by inflation. However, when it comes to the second question, it's also true that price controls have been tried at a state level in numerous American states, but have generally been pretty ineffective and have often resulted in shortages. This isn't to say that price controls can't work per se, but they're difficult to effect in practice. Anyway, Harris's fourth policy has to do with housing. While Harris has proposed some demand-side remedies to America's housing crisis, including up to $25,000 in direct support and a $10,000 tax credit for first-time buyers, most of her political attention here is focused on supply-side measures, aimed at increasing house building. These include a new tax credit for builders of homes sold to first-time buyers, the repurposing of some federal land for affordable housing, and a wider deregulation of the housing market to make it easier for developers to build. So, those are Harris's 4 specific policies, but what do they tell us about her economic instincts more generally? Well, the first thing is that Harris is clearly aware that inflation, and the perception that the Biden administration is responsible for inflation, is a problem for the Democrats, which is why all of her policies are explicitly about bringing down costs for consumers. Polling suggests that voters hold Harris less directly responsible for inflation than they did with Biden, and Harris is clearly trying to reposition herself as an anti-inflationary candidate, fighting for ordinary Americans and consumers against big corporations, in a way that Biden just wasn't able to. The second big takeaway as we see it is the continuation of Bidenomics, albeit with a slightly different emphasis. Again, Bidenomics was defined by 2 things. The first was a total disdain for deficits. The Biden administration spent a lot of money, first on post-pandemic stimulus, which, by the way, has been largely forgotten, but was immensely successful at helping the US return to pre-pandemic growth trajectory sooner than basically any other large economy, and then on industrial subsidies via policies like the Inflation Reduction Act. These weren't accompanied by equivalent tax hikes, which means that the federal government has had to borrow an awful lot of money, and the annual deficit is now nearing 7% of GDP. Like Biden, Harris is keen on spending a lot more money, although on social policies rather than industrial policies, without equivalent tax hikes, which means more borrowing. In the past, Republicans would have jumped on this to accuse the Democrats of fiscal incompetence, but because Trump ran large deficits during his time in office and is now promising both more spending and tax cuts, they've been unable to capitalize on it. The second element of Bidenomics is aesthetic. Basically, Biden liked to present himself as the defender of ordinary Americans and consumers against big corporations. This is why Biden was the first president to walk a picket line, and why his administration was so enthusiastic about antitrust suits against big companies. By attacking...
All right, so those were her policies, because a lot of people was like, what are her policies? What are her policies? Because it was just not clear, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of the time when she was asked questions, she would go into a whole diatribe about her history and where she comes from and things like that, which that wasn't the question that was asked. So
Yeah, it was like a distraction.
yeah, it seemed like, you know, sleight of hand misdirection and stuff. Yeah. But also we got to talk about why it seems like Trump won in the first place. Like what made him win? Let's see.
Besides the fact that he's hilarious, he is so funny.
Yeah, he's got the humor that matches what most people are kind of looking for, like that.
Yeah. We're gonna pop the shit out of him.
Yeah, for sure. And I think in general he had a better understanding about what most Americans' concerns really are. You know, people's concerns were economical, like how can I take care of my family? You know, how can I, you know what I mean? How can I make more money? Like this is a society, you know, and a lot of people are concerned about some of the other social issues, and he's addressing them more effectively than Kamala was. So I think that's it. And then also he had a lot of creative solutions, you know, in mind when it comes to, you know, solving some of the economical problems that we're going to be facing or that we are currently facing, or that Americans are facing currently, you know?
Yeah.
And then he also had a sense of patriotism, which was been missing for a very long time. It's been a lot of I think America kind of lost sight of what made it it made it a unique place to be,
Yeah,
and
it,
so
it really was.
yeah, and I think he's bringing back that kind of sense of American pride, which people,
Yeah,
yeah,
taking it back to the 80s.
yeah,
Yep, the 80s, it was booming. Oh my God, booming. Lots of money everywhere.
yeah, exactly. Even the 90s was better, you know.
Yeah, it was better. I just think
Everything
of
was
like
better.
just how everything was just Americana, just cheeseburgers and Pepsi commercials, halftime shows, Britney Spears, Spice Girls. It was just like a fabulous good time. We were kids, but America just screamed fantastic and fun at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah. And just to go back to what I was saying about Kamala's policies, it seemed like it was very tax credit heavy.
Yeah,
And it just made me wonder, like, where is this money going to be coming from to pay for all of these things that you're talking about?
right.
Have some ideas to,
That's the whole point. Scare you with her, and then so you slide over here.
yeah, yeah, and I think Trump he had some ideas about like, doing tax credits for several different things, but also he has ways to like get that money back from other countries who should be paying us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
His idea is not to just tax like the wealthy or other people in America. He's trying to find that money elsewhere and levy tariffs elsewhere, and force them to deal with us in a more beneficial way that works for Americans,
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's some Americans that are tired of going overseas and they don't have any of our products, nothing American, no American cars or anything. But when you come over here, we're just like, just dumped on.
We're just consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I think that's the main thing. And Trump had some interesting, I would say, like very controversial in some ways as well, key issues that he was concentrating on, one of which is immigration. So he has the policy that he wants to create the largest mass deportation program in history. Trump is calling for the National Guard to empower the police to force the effort. So he wants to basically use the police services in each state to make sure to like sweep each state and find the illegal immigrants and deport them, or force them to go through the proper channels. I think mostly deportation is what his focus on. Yeah. And so I do have a video about that, like what he's talking about, what he thinks from his own mouth, because I think we hear a lot of third-hand information about like what he thinks and what he's doing and everything like that. So I think it's important to hear in context as much as possible what is it he's talking about. I'm gonna share this video about his proposed immigration plan.
Oh, wow. Are y'all ready for this?
Hold on, my camera. What's going on?
And so while she sets that video up, I saw a post yesterday with someone that took a vacation in Paris, and the streets were full of homeless people, not just men and children. I saw children in diapers sitting on the ground, like babies. I don't mean 4 and up, I mean like 2. And I'm like, wow, what happens in the winter? Like, where do they go? So, yeah, I've been seeing it here too. People in the middle of the street with their children, and it's too much. Something must be done. But let's see what he's talking about.
We have to seal up those borders.
He made immigration the centerpiece of his campaign.
We're like a garbage.
Trump has promised to immediately crack down with mass deportations of people in the country illegally.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history to get the criminals out.
To do that, Trump has said he'll mobilize the military and local police, but he's offered few specific details on how it will actually work. With 11 million undocumented people living in the U.S., the process would be expensive and complicated. One report puts the price tag at an estimated $88 billion a year to hire new ICE agents, build detention camps, and carry out legal processing. Ron Vitello was acting ICE director during the first Trump administration.
I'm sure it's very expensive. It is something that's worth doing to preserve the rule of law, to order what's going on, the chaos at the southwest border, and to preserve an immigration system that has integrity in the United States. You have to set rules and you have to enforce those rules.
Trump says mass deportations are justified by a 2-centuries-old law, but some legal experts on the left say Trump's interpretation is way off.
It is not lawful to use this centuries-old statute to deport people. It was for a very specific purpose when a foreign government invades this country. That is not what's happening with immigrants here.
Trump made immigration a major focus of his first administration with mixed success. He built part of a wall on the U.S. border with Mexico and separated families who crossed illegally. Now, in places like North Carolina, this family lives in fear they could be separated. Jenny's husband, Isabella, and Mackenzie's dad is undocumented.
I was afraid that one day they would come home and he wouldn't be here.
So he lives in the shadows. The family asks we don't show his face or share his name because they worry he could be deported.
I don't make any trouble. I just go work and coming home. My family is everything for me.
Tonight, millions of families bracing for what's next. Tom Llamas, NBC News.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about.
How you gonna put him on? How you gonna put the woman on the news and say that they hope they can't show their faces? Whoever knows her. Anyway, yes, my main concern is just the children. What do you mean separate families? And then I guess it's because they really don't have anything to come back to. You know what I mean? They left in the first place, so now you're sending them back. But are you really going to send them back? What are you going to do? Because last time, didn't he put a whole bunch of, there was a whole bunch of children, Mexican children in cages, right? Well, and then
I think kids have always been in cages. There's no difference. It's like they always have. It's just a different verbiage that they use to represent, what is going on.
Yeah,
they say kids in cages for Trump because they hate Trump, so they make it sound as illicit as possible. But with the different administrations, they kind of use different words to have the same thing.
Very strong words. Very strong words.
Yep. So it's just a fact of nature. I mean, it's a fact of the politics of the world because, there's no other country that you could just walk in there and just be there if you feel like it. Not even Mexico, even though they treat Mexico like a place that you could just go to whenever you feel like it and stay there if you feel like it.
Yeah.
But they have an immigration policy. Most countries do. They have borders and they all exist for a reason so that basically... Because what is it? We have governments. So the governments are serving the people, the population, So once there are people that aren't documented, people that aren't accounted for, it puts a strain on the economy. There's a reason. There is consequence to these things,
Yeah, bring too many people in the club. There's not enough liquor for everyone. You know what I'm saying? You can't have too many people in the club.
Yeah, but it's not even just can't have too many. You can't have too many that you don't know how many there are at all. You know what I mean? It's like
right. And they over here killing dogs and stuff. That just happened to my homeboy. I think not too long ago. I think it was just a few days ago. His dog got thrown off the roof.
What the hell?
Yeah, they over here. Not all of them, but some of them over here wilding out.
Well, Donald Trump, he did say they're eating the cats. They're eating the dogs.
Yeah, there was a video of a woman not too far from me over on Howard Beach. She had to take a bird away. She's like, let go of the bird. Let go of the bird because it was a baby seagull. It's like a little teenager. It didn't get to live that long. So shout out to her. Because most people are like, she's crazy. It's a bird. Yeah, it's our bird. Okay? Let go of the bird.
Let go.
Yeah, let go of the bird. It's a baby. Yeah, I think they want to eat it, but I guess they're out on the street hungry. I'm not too sure. So, yeah. But I just worry about the children, those sweet, innocent little babies.
Yeah, the thing is that, they could be dangerous people coming. It's like, if we don't know what is going, I don't know. I just feel like, he's doing the right thing as far as keeping keeping the population protected,
Yes.
yeah, how can you control? It's like having a house and you just let random people in. You don't know what is going on. You don't know who's here. You don't know who's eating your food. You don't know what kind of danger you could be in, what kind of person it is,
No
He's
bueno.
supposed to be protected. He's supposed to be doing that. It's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
It is what it
agree.
is. I mean, everybody knows somebody who maybe their status isn't sorted out, which is unfortunate. You hear what I'm saying? So I'm
Yeah.
not saying that it's not nice that he's throwing people out, but you can't do that in any other country.
You can't.
You can't
You
just
can't.
walk in and stay if you feel like it. And if you do, you are running a risk, and you know that. But it's like America is expected to let you do what you want.
Oh. Well, let's see what happens. Because all of a sudden you let a whole bunch of people in, and all of a sudden they got to trickle through. So I won't say too much, but we're just gonna watch.
Yep, we're gonna watch and see, and hopefully it kind of works out for the best. He did say something about. I did see him talk about. He does believe that there should be immigration. Like a lot of people are acting like he's saying nobody should come in, like he's Kim Jong-un, North Korea. He's not saying that. He's saying that he wants quality people coming in. He wants to know who it is that's coming in. He doesn't want people to take it upon themselves to just walk in and do what they want. And then also potentially could be criminals or dangerous people traffickers, and causing problems that he can't control because he doesn't know that they're even there. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. There's so much lost in translation, especially when it comes to politics and the things that people say. It's like a game of telephone almost. You know what I mean?
Especially if people don't have the attention span or the will to learn and educate themselves and go and find things in context. They just want to kind of roll on the opinions of other people and and get emotional about stuff that they don't even fully understand for themselves from first-hand information or even second-hand information. They won't watch anything outside of their echo chamber. So
right, it's the same thing as back in the 70s and stuff when they said nobody wants to read, but then people don't want to read because I guess it's boring and tedious, but and they word things in a way that makes you not want to read at all. You know what I'm saying? So
and
it's the same thing with social media.
Yeah, and they disincentivize reading. They don't want you to read because the information is there, and it disproves a lot of the things that we believe.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, so let's take a look at see what Trump's talking about when it comes to the taxes.
$916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income tax.
Okay, this is him talking about his own personal taxes, because this is what people talk about all the time. Like he's a fraud. He does fraud and stuff like that. But really, he's just in business. He's a business person and he understands taxes, or he has really good accountants that understand how to.
Poor versus rich, dumb versus smart.
Yeah, he's used in tax law to the highest level where he's been able to, deal with his taxes a certain type of way,
They just don't understand.
All right, so he's gonna talk about it right now.
Okay. Of course I do. Did you use that $916 million loss to avoid paying personal federal income taxes?
Of course I do. Of course I do. And so do all of her donors, or most of her donors. I know many of her donors. Her donors took massive tax write-offs.
So
a lot of my write-off was depreciation and other things that Hillary, as a senator, allowed. And she'll always allow it because the people that give her all this money, they want it. That's why. See, I understand the tax code better than anybody that's ever run for president. Hillary Clinton, and it's extremely complex, Hillary Clinton has friends that want all of these provisions, including they want the carried interest provision, which is very important to Wall Street people, but they really want the carried interest provision, which I believe Hillary's leaving. It's very interesting why she's leaving carried interest. But I will tell you that, number one, I pay tremendous numbers of taxes. I absolutely used it, and so did Warren Buffett, and so did George Soros, and so did many of the other people that Hillary is getting money from. Now, I won't mention their names because they're rich, but they're not famous, so we won't make them famous. Okay?
Can you say how many years you have avoided paying personal federal income taxes?
No, but I pay tax, and I pay federal tax, too. but I have a write-off. A lot of it's depreciation, which is a wonderful charge. I love depreciation. You know, she's given it to us. Hey, if she had a problem, for 30 years she's been doing this, Anderson. I say it all the time. She talks about health care. Why didn't she do something about it? She talks about taxes. Why didn't she do something about it? She doesn't do anything about anything other than talk. With her, it's all talk and no action.
In the past,
and again, Bernie Sanders, it's really bad judgment. She has made bad judgment not only on taxes, she's made bad judgments on Libya, on Syria, on Iraq. I mean, her and Obama, whether you like it or not, the way they got out of Iraq, the vacuum they've left, that's why ISIS formed in the first place. They started from that little area, and now they're in 32 different nations, Hillary. Congratulations. Great job.
Woo, he came out her neck.
Like a real Queen's boy.
Came out her neck about that.
Yeah. Too smart for y'all. He's just a businessman. Business is where, listen, business and law coincide. You know what I mean?
They keep talking about he's a failed business. He's in the game. You know, it's a whole different thing. Listen, if he was so failed, he wouldn't be where he's at. People are so dismissive of people. At the minute you take a loss as a business person, they say that you're a loser or you're failed. But
that's why some people don't even try.
That's right, because they cared about the judgment of other people and motherfuckers that would never even touch the paint.
Yeah, ever. There's no reason to be scared. And real businessmen out there with people that are really about it. They don't, you know, you got the idiots that judge, but most of them don't judge. They'll be like, you know, they'll go to dinner with you. Hey, did you file this? Did you file that? All right, you'll be fine. Here's $1 million to hold you over until. Or they already have provisions, you know what I mean? It's like you just have silly folk and then you got everybody else just doing their thing. It's an ugly mix.
Yep. And Trump has put more emphasis on new proposals aimed at working and middle class Americans, exempting earned tips, Social Security wages, and overtime wages from income taxes. So here's a few points on Trump's tax plan going forward.
So here's Donald Trump's new tax plan in less than 60 seconds. First, he wants overtime wages to be exempt from taxes completely, which will be a massive tax break for millions of employees logging overtime hours. He also wants tips to be exempt from taxes, which means restaurant and hospitality workers will pay 0 taxes on their tip income. He also wants Social Security income to be exempt from taxes, which costs some retirees an extra 50 to 85% in taxes when withdrawing their benefits. And for businesses, he wants to decrease the corporate tax rate again from 21 to 20%, and even as low as 15% for certain corporations who produce goods in the US. Plus, some of the tax cuts he implemented in 2017 are set to expire, and his plan is to make those tax cuts permanent.
Well. So
yeah.
What do we think?
That's why his name's Trump. He wants to trump away the garbage. He wants to trump that, all of that mess.
I think that the flyest part of it is like the tax exemption for tip workers. That's gonna bring people back to doing service-based work. You know what I mean? And incentivize that, because it's like if you could work your ass off and do waitressing, you know, you can actually make your lifestyle, you know. Yeah,
because there's a lot. Remember, they were single mothers, always taking care of their children, and you know they're able to pay the rent and feed them. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was a time, you know, it wasn't easy, and it probably wasn't that much, but damn it, you weren't afraid that, you know, that you're going to be put out on the street.
And you know, also strippers are going to be able to, they don't have to pay no taxes.
That'd be great. Listen,
pay no taxes because it's mostly tips you get paid.
It's all tip, right? But then the club is taking most of it. Oh my God, I'll tell you all about it one day. Yeah, they'll clean you out.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's why you have to start your own strip club.
I know,
you gotta be Jocelyn's Cabaret.
Oh my gosh,
Jocelyn's Cabaret.
Do it like it might be there. Do it like it might be there,
baby.
Does anyone want to? What is it? Is anyone going to match my freak? Are you going to match my capacity? Yeah, tax free for the dancers because they have kids. Anyone getting tips? Because a lot of those dancers, you know, they don't want to do the extra stuff. They just want to dance and go home.
Who wants to do the extra stuff? Like, I feel like, you know, that's just a means to an end for some people that have no choice, you know?
Yeah. Some people.
Some people, yeah. Right. And so, you know, the other quite controversial part of his plan is also to do with tariffs and trade. So he proposes that there be some taxes levied against foreign goods. So he proposes an extra taxes of 10 to 20% on foreign goods. And in some speeches, he actually mentioned that he wants even higher percentage, as high as he can, percentages on consumer goods overseas. And he promises to reinstate an 2020 executive order requiring that Food and Drug administrations buy essential medications only from U.S. companies. So I feel like, you know, that's just to incentivize, you know, doing more business inside the country and making more money, you know, circulate inside the country, you know, rather than, you know, sending the money out of the country. And he pledges to block purchase of any vital infrastructure in the U.S. by Chinese buyers. So
very important. Oh my God. I can't tell you how many Black girls came up with websites to sell hair and stuff. And, you know, they got a fake website where they're taking things, you know, fake products and just a whole bunch. Not all of you Chinese, but there's always going to be some people that try to, you know, scheme and scam. And it's been happening.
Yeah, I watched actually, I need to see if I could find that video. I watched a video from Mr. Wonderful, you know, from Shark Tank. That's my guy. He was talking about how the Chinese companies, they don't deal fair. They do a lot of stealing. They steal your ideas, you know, or your copyrighted materials and stuff like that. Produce your designs, like if you're a designer or you're creative or you've got you know, patents, they'll rip off your patents and just start selling your stuff once you go to manufacture over there. So, you know, he's actually in favor of a lot of these levies and taxes and sanctions to make sure that they are forced to deal fair, you know?
Yeah.
And have more rules about that. So I'm gonna play a video here that I saw about that whole idea about the taxes and the levies.
Announced that starting on day one of his administration, he'll charge Mexico and Canada 20 states, all in caps there. That could raise costs for Americans on everything coming across either border. We're talking about cars, electronics, oil, wood, food, avocados, maple syrup. Trump says it's to force the U.S.'s closest neighbors to take action on illegal immigration and crime and drugs. But he's not stopping there, saying the United States will charge an additional 10% tariff on all of China's many products coming into the U.S. Of course, those many products include everything: smartphones, computers, washing machines, toys, video game consoles. My team of political and economic sources join me now. And Rana, you know, just on the Mexico and Canada aspect, 51% of all fresh fruit, 69% of vegetables, according to the USDA, come from Mexico. Yeah. These are voters who just put Trump in office because they trusted him more on the economy. How should they be reading a promise like that from Trump tonight?
Oh, man. Well, you know, I was always astounded, I have to say, that he ran on, I'm going to lower inflation, when if you look at the policies, tariffs included, it's all about raising inflation, right? And it's also raising the dollar, which is going to have a larger impact in the market. I want to just say, though, I think this is an opening gambit. You know, I don't want to say that, all right, this is going to be the way it's going to be from day one. Trump says a lot of things.
You think he's bluffing?
I think that what's happening fundamentally now that's different under this president is that the U.S. market will be used as a chit on a gambling table that is the global economy. I mean, that is the way you have to look at it. We are not in trade as usual. We are not in the economy that we've known, frankly, for the last 40 years or so. It's going to be totally different.
I mean, Alyssa, you worked for Trump as his communications director in the White House. I mean, there are moments where Trump says he's going to do something and backs down. He did it his last time in office. He definitely put tariffs on, but there were certain ones where advisors could talk him out of that. What does that look like in round two?
Well, Donald Trump has basically two core policy beliefs. He believes the border should be secure, and he believes in tariffs, even when his economic advisors have at times recommended strongly against them in the previous administration. This is something he ran on and was vocal about, and I'm not surprised that this is one of the first things that he's announcing, despite warnings from fellow Republicans who have said this is actually just going to increase the cost of goods on everything. A lot of folks are calling it an Amazon tax. Anything that you're buying that is, coming from China, you're going to pay a lot more for. There will be advisors around him. I'll be curious to see how his first administration was somebody who often pushed back on some of the efforts to put in place bigger tariffs. But you have people like Peter Navarro, who is in his ear saying this is the way to hold Mexico, China, and other places accountable.
And he's expected to get a top job, Peter Navarro. But speaking of his Treasury Secretary pick, Scott Bessent, who we were just talking about here on Friday, he did a CNBC interview right after the election and was talking about tariffs. And this is what he said about the effectiveness of how they're implemented.
I would recommend that tariffs be layered in gradually, which would the price adjustment would be over a period of time.
And Essie, when you hear that, I want to get both your thoughts on this, but when you hear that, congressional Republicans or business Republicans who, like Trump, have said for a long time, it's a threat. He's threatening this to stop fentanyl coming across the border, to stop illegal immigration. The question is, what does it look like in January if he actually does have to put these on?
Bad. Remember there was a thing a long time ago. It was called a fiscal conservative. Do you remember what that was? I do. It was good times. It was good times.
And in the Midwest.
That was a few were still around. But for us, that meant lowering the debt and the deficit. That meant anti-inflationary economic policy, and that means opposing tariffs. And that's for a century. That's not new. That was bedrock to the right. And that's why you're still seeing some Republicans and some conservatives like the Club for Growth and National Review write column after column begging Trump to abandon this and even to stop talking like this, because even the threat triggers a trade war. No one wins a trade war. That's just, we know that. And to your point, I talked to voters for 6 months. The main thing they wanted was for Trump to lower the cost of goods. The exact opposite is the first thing he's going to do when he gets into office if he follows through with this.
And Caitlin, you got to know, this is a dynamic process. People aren't just going to sit back and say, oh, wow, you raised our tariffs, we're going to sit here and let it happen. They will then respond in some way. And so these are three of our largest trading partners that are out there. So we just think about our exports. I just wrote it down. We export $362 billion of goods to Mexico and another $200 billion of goods to China. And one of the things we export to China? Soybeans. And where soybeans are grown? Iowa, Indiana, Ohio, all states that voted for Donald Trump. So he's supposed to be representing these voters, and he may in fact be putting them in a position where they're going to have a harder time selling their products, and it's going to cost us money.
What about oil? I mean, the U.S. imports $4.3 million barrels of oil a day from Canada. What does that look like when there's a 25% tariff on that for people who rely on that?
Well, not good. And, food and fuel hits the lower 25% of the sort of socioeconomic ladder hardest. So the working people, many of them that voted for Trump, are going to get hit. But I want to say two things. I think, again, we have to think about this as a bargain, as a game that Trump is playing. And not to justify
and voters
tariffs.
Trust Trump on this. I mean, that's part. I mean, the numbers overwhelmingly showed that.
100%. And I think that there used to be, when everybody was coming together in a kind of Anglo-American style capitalism, that was one thing to have, trickle down, low deficit and debt. Now you're competing against China. You're competing against countries that have fundamentally different economic systems. And, not a huge fan of tariffs, but I do think that they are one tool in the toolbox that can be deployed in strategic.
How he's messaging matters. So he's kind of framing this as we're doing it because we're having fentanyl come over the border, we're having illegal flow of people in the country. And those are real issues that voters said that they cared about. And I think this is also getting ahead of if he does go forward with this mass deportations that he's talking about. If we're not talking about Obama numbers of like 2 million people, you're talking 10 million people, that impacts the agriculture sector, that impacts the hospitality sector. There's major economic impacts. And I think this gives him some cover when people start realizing the downside of also his immigration policies.
Yeah, or when the tariffs are put in place and guacamole is,
I mean, really
anything but my avocado. Really extra at Chipotle.
Yeah, exactly. Portion smaller.
Everyone, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to understand what some of the implications of his policies are, regardless of like what who you support, and when it comes to all of this,
looking forward.
It is what it is.
Critical.
Now. Yeah, so it seems like sometimes there's hard decisions to make. You got to think about it just like in your own personal life. Sometimes you have to make difficult decisions that makes it hard for you in the short term, but it causes everyone else to respect you more because you're willing to cut off some of the comfort for the sake of people understanding that they can't walk all over you, they can't do what they want, they can't fuck with you. You get what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of that going on, you know what I'm saying? So it's like it will negatively affect the other country, the bordering countries and the other countries that we do trade with, and force everybody to go back to the negotiation table. I think that's the main thing, you know what I'm saying? So we will see how it affects the everyday person.
Yeah.
And you know, if it can self-correct over time.
Yeah.
You know?
It always can. It's just about, just having the playing field set out properly. But
Yeah,
people
it needs to
once.
be organized a bit, because as it stands right now, we've been put at a disadvantage because a lot of things have happened as far as our financial economy, like the petrodollar got abandoned recently. There's a lot of things going on. So it's like some things is going to be necessary in order to think. And then not only that, Trump has the opinion that not enough stuff is being made in America. So it's like
At all.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah. And so if you make it more expensive to do all that external business, then maybe there'll be more incentive to do that. More, make more things, create more cell phones, make more computers, make more cars in America for Americans,
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what we need. Yeah, no more going to other countries and, not seeing our stuff there. Let's do everything here. Nice and American like it was in the 60s.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, exactly. And then also he's got some ideas on regulations of federal bureaucracy and presidential power. So he is seeking to reduce the role of the federal bureaucrats and regulations across economic sectors. He pledges a drop in U.S. households' utility bills by removing the obstacles to fossil fuel production, including opening all federal land stakes for exploration, which kind of goes into what the lady was talking about us importing a lot of oil from Canada and things like that. So basically, he's doing a lot of cutting off of external of our dependence on external stuff, so we're forced to figure out what we've got here and how we can get what we've got to go, you know what I mean? Get it sorted here where we are, or in America.
Right, no auxiliary.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Everything in house. That's how we want it. That's how you stand 10 toes.
Right, exactly. So stay 10 toes down and be independent. So let's see what Trump, when he was in power before, a lot of his policy when it comes to deregulating a lot of industries and making it easier for businesses to operate.
Small business, and this is regulation, and this will be the largest ever cut by these folks as small business owners. And they're great people. They've been representative of the community, the small business community. If you have a regulation you want, number one, we're not going to approve it because it's already been approved probably in 17 different forms. But if we do, the only way you have a chance is we have to knock out 2 regulations for every new regulation. So if there's a new regulation, they have to knock out 2. But it goes far beyond that. We're cutting regulations massively for small business and for large business, but they're different, but for small business. And that's what this is about today. And this will be the biggest such act that our country has ever seen. There will be regulation, there will be control, but it will be a normalized control where you can open your business and expand your business very easily. And that's what our country has been about. Should I sign it? That's great. That's a big one.
Yeah. Papa came home, he got the belt out. He said, enough of the foolishness. Everybody get in line. Y'all in here, I'll leave the house for 5 minutes. Y'all out here acting like fools. Yeah, that's why we call him Daddy Trump. He came, he's like, whoa, what's all this? Put that away. You playing with glitter? Clean it up.
And a lot of people said that they were making a lot more money under Trump. Like business owners, they said they were making a lot more money and their money dried up when Biden got in. So
yeah,
they rolled back a lot of his deregulations and stuff like that. So it could have a lot to do with that.
A whole lot.
The
Yes,
last thing that,
businesses flourish and everything. Oh, it's gonna feel like just a relief. People are gonna be so relieved. But let's see what happens.
and another one of Trump's policies is to do with abortion. His main thing with abortion is that, well, in general, he played down abortion as a second-term policy. Even though he did take some credit for like Supreme Court ending a woman's federal right to terminate a pregnancy and returning the abortion regulation to the state governments. So it's Roe versus Wade. We did talk about Roe versus Wade in a previous episode, and it was a piece of legislation that made it a federal rule that women can terminate pregnancies, and basically the Supreme Court overturned that earlier last year or this year, and put it in the hands of the states. So it's still a legal thing, but it's not legal across the board. It's basically a state by state determined thing.
Yeah.
And what people need to know about that is that regardless of whatever president comes in, they could never change that. There's no changing that. It's already in the hands of the states. It's already been overturned by the Supreme Court. So no matter if Kamala or Trump becomes president, there will be no change in that at all. So
yeah,
that's what people need to know about. And the GOP platform still asserts that the fetus should have due process and protections under
yes,
the 15th Amendment and equal protection clause. So basically, that an unborn baby should have rights just like a born child or person. Yeah, and I do have a video about that as well, so we can get a bit more educated about his policy and what he actually thinks about these things,
Yes.
This is a video from 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
a while ago.
This video is from 1999. This is his opinions on abortion from 1999. So I want to share that. Hold on, let's see if I can pull it up.
Is this the one he did with Barbara Walters?
It might be, but I didn't see who he's been interviewed from.
Okay.
Been on MSNBC from. Hold on.
I'm very pro-choice.
All right, let's get it. He's pro-choice, everyone. Despite what you've been told.
He's tall, dark, and he's sensitive. Oh. Daddy Trump.
Daddy.
Here was Donald Trump on the abortion issue when he appeared on Meet the Press with Tim Russert back in '99. Let's watch.
Well, look, I'm very pro-choice. I hate the concept of abortion. I hate it. I hate everything. I cringe when I listen to people debating the subject. But I just believe in choice. But I am strongly for choice, and yet I hate the concept of abortion.
But you would not ban it?
No.
Only for choice, and here's the new deal.
You see? Let other people tell it. He's completely wanting to ban women's choice, which he's never said that. So he just hates the idea of abortion. I don't know a lot of people that love the idea of abortion. It's just a necessary thing in certain cases, and it's obviously in the 1% of things where people have experienced rape or incest. Those are absolute times when people should have that choice because, they didn't have the choice to even get impregnated at all. It wasn't there. It wasn't a consensual thing. And then, in the case where the child is deformed or has a disability that is going to really disrupt his quality of life, that's a decision that some people might make just to prevent, unnecessary suffering for the child. But that's also debatable too, because it's like, do they still have the right to live? Because if you could see on a scan if a child's going to be blind, does that give you the right to, abort the child because it's going to have a struggle?
All they're going to do in court is bring up cases of people living a fabulous life blind.
Exactly. That's what I'm
If
trying
you're
to
not going to be able to breathe and you're in the bed and you're like,
yeah, exactly. So there's a line there as well, but
yeah.
as it is right now, there's a lot of people that is using abortion as a form of birth control. And that's not something that people should be acting like it doesn't exist just because it's the less savory and it kind of impedes on other people's so-called rights because they want to be able to do this if they so choose. Majority of people there's a lot of people that are doing it because they just don't want to have a child and they find themselves pregnant, no other reason than that, not economical and not because, they just don't, it's just because they don't want to. And then there are people that are having abortions because they literally cannot afford to have a child or they don't have the emotional, mental capacity to take care of a child in their own opinion,
Right.
So there's lots of reasons why people have abortions, and a lot of the time it's it should be the choice of the person, but I really feel like the excess of it all needs to be staved off, and I think that's what I think this is like a desperate attempt to prevent this excessive murdering of children because it's happening, and then not only that, the organs and the body parts of these kids are being used for stuff. Do people know that?
Mm-hmm.
Do people know that this is an industry? People are using these organs.
That's why I say, what y'all gonna do with them kids? And what happened to those kids that were in the cages? Because when I ask about them, no one has an answer. No one has an answer at all. At all. Even a politician buddy of mine, I asked him, and he kind of just smirked and kind of walked off. I was like, oh, okay. All right. Yeah. That's what I worry about. In a perfect world, I mean, God already gave us the plan. Here, eat one apple, plant one seed from that apple, even though there's 10, and you get a whole tree that infinitely. It's just when you think about God's world underneath this monopoly board, it's really disgusting. So I guess we're going to find out whose responsibility it is to bring it back to the grass. And that's what we're going to call it, bringing people's ass back to the grass. Because really, all of this shouldn't be here. Nobody would have to kill their child if we weren't worrying about stupid stuff.
Yeah.
We're just supposed to have homes, fruit, trees, animals, all of that. All of this stuff ain't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
So that's what really screams simulation.
That's right.
It screams simulation.
That's right. And I was saying as well, because there seems to be quite a bit of a push for people to have children. I'm seeing even in the policies that we watched earlier, they want people to have children for whatever reason, right? But they have to understand that the way that the society is currently, it's far too expensive for a lot of people to feel comfortable having one child more than, let alone more than one, right? Because it's like it's not a priority to make provisions for human beings to live, to have a home. They've made it a financial
it's monopoly.
They've made housing become a financial instrument, which is it's just so counterproductive, and it's not going to that's why people are not feeling comfortable in the society to have children, because you don't know where you're going to live. You don't know what kind of quality of life you're going to be able to provide for them. Bottom line, if that's the agenda, if that's on the agenda for the next 10 years, is that you want this population to go up and you want people to be able to feel comfortable having kids, you need to be addressing making sure homelessness goes away. No more homelessness. No more food insecurity. You get what I'm saying?
And they know that, but there has to be a reason for this, because you got humans just chilling on a planet, eating their apples and stuff, babies running around playing with their raccoon friends. What happens that causes all of this? Like, let's just keep building and making it worse and worse. I would like to go deep, but I don't think I should. I think we should Keep the show out of it. It's really ugly. That's really the only thing I can come back to. Like when I hear about politics, I feel like I'm just hearing a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, well, we don't even need all of that. It don't got to be like that. This is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Everyone should have a home. Ange said it to me 2 years ago. She said, everyone should have a home. And that's true. You know what I mean? And have our own people police rapists and stuff. You know, the whole village, they found out this guy was touching that girl. So there's a certain group of men, they handle it how they see fit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's on Cleo Badashian's planet. You're welcome to come. If you want me to be president, and I'll just get rid of all of this stuff and we could just live off the land and be happy with the kids. And you niggas to stop what y'all gonna do with the rapists and murderers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let me know. I'll do it.
All that unsavory behavior needs to be stomped out.
Oh, it will.
Yeah.
It will. Because you see, in India they do it, not on a big scale, but you see what happens when the women get together. They all get their little slippers, and you know what I mean.
Yep.
The people will handle it. The people will always handle it. The good outweighs the bad.
Well, we're going into a new era now. There's a whole new world coming, you know, regardless of what, different technologies coming out to make our lives easier and make work be basically obsolete in the next years. You know what I mean? The work is, as we know it, is going to be a whole different situation. The powers that be, they always want to make sure that there's a certain level of stress associated with life so that you feel compelled to do work that you don't want to do. You know what I'm saying? And so as those people pass away and get out of this world, we're going to have a different world that we're experiencing. So, I think the best thing is to stay in a positive mindset and stay conscious of what is that you actually want, instead of being so conscious of what negative outcomes could happen if nothing is done. You know what I'm saying? Because that absolves you of your personal power, and it's our personal power that is needed in order to power anything. That's why they always try to influence our thoughts and feelings, because it's our emotions that moves this world, and if it influences how everything goes. Because the more scared we are, the more law enforcement there is, and then the more law enforcement there is, the more they need to support that regime of there being law enforcement. So if there's no crime, there's no need for any police. So all these people can become unemployed. You know what I mean? If there's no crime, there's a built-in incentive for there to be crime. It's like a never-ending endless cycle. So that's why we need to reduce fear by handling and stomping out negative influences and vicious, evil doers. You know what I'm saying? Those people need to be out of here.
Yeah.
So we can have a nice, safe environment.
Mm-hmm. And y'all not allowed to gather nowhere else. That's the evil people cave. There's nowhere for you to be, darling. This won't happen again. If we can get it right. But me and Andrew just feel bad for the children. They don't ask for this. Some might say, well, it's their karma. They came back in that situation. Yeah, but I don't want to hear all that.
Yep. Well, another policy that Trump has is regarding taxes. That involves rolling back Democratic President Joe Biden's income tax hikes on the wealthiest of Americans and scrapping Inflation Reduction Act levies that finance energy measures and intended to combat and scrapping the Inflation Reduction Act that levies. And scrapping Inflation Reduction Act levies that finance energy measures intended to combat climate change. Now, a lot of people are invested in this whole idea of climate change. I happen to be of the belief that climate change is a somewhat contrived mission. It's like a impossible task that's been instilled upon us to make us guilty for the situation that the planet, that the environment that the planet is in. But really, it's something that's happening because of the level of capitalism that's happening and the amount of misbehavior that they inhibit, like that they put forth. They put in pollution inside of our oceans and polluting the air and putting out all of this packaging on our goods and things like that, and then they are placing the blame on us and calling it climate change and telling us that, you know, the whole world is going to change. But
yeah,
you know, what is being left out of the conversation is the fact that the planet is a living being, so it's reacting, you know what I mean, it's operating in a way that probably would have already been acting if we didn't exist. We're basically we're bacteria on this planet. We are so small that we're like the size of bacteria. So it's like to say that the bacteria on our skin are the reason why we're you know, not doing good in life. It's like, okay, what's gonna happen? What happens to us when we experience something like that? When we know, okay, there's bacteria on our skin, we put the anti-bac on ourselves, and we get rid of that shit. So that's what the planet will do. The planet will correct itself, you know, and there's nothing that the bacteria could do to reverse what they want. You know what I'm saying? Because it's just
Mama's gonna do what Mama wants to do. Whatever's good
that's
for
what I'm
Mama.
saying. Is all of this is just an organism. We're a bunch of organisms living together and operating together, right? There are things that we should be doing, but the most of the blame and most of the responsibility lies on the corporations and these factories and things like that are putting out, you know, the negative elements into our environment. And that's where the blame should be, and that's where all the responsibility needs to be, not us, you know.
Yeah.
And then Donald Trump, it looks like he's rolling back the tax hikes on the very wealthy people, because if you think about it, if you levy a bunch of taxes and you make it difficult for people that make a lot of money, two things are going to happen. First thing is it's going to disincentivize making money. So you're going to have people that are avoiding making money, avoiding being wealthy, and avoiding bringing higher GOP to the country. You know what I mean? And then you're going to have people that are and then you're gonna have oh fuck, I forgot my other point.
Take your time.
I forgot my other point. What was my other point?
Yeah, imagine working to be wealthy, and then
you're gonna have people that they don't want to stop making money. They're just gonna move out the country. So that local GDP in general too. So it's like it's not positive to the idea of the American dream. It's negative to the idea of the American dream, and America, right? The United States of America, the corporation that is America, is built on the American dream and people having that aspiration to make a lot of money. So if you start making it disincentivizing making a lot of money, it goes against the whole idea and kind of crumbles the whole foundation of what exists. So I think Donald Trump understands that very well, and that's why he wants to remove that. Whether you like that or not, whether you think that that's positive or not, I think that's the reason behind that whole thing. So
yeah,
Donald Trump did talk about that. Do you have any points on that, Cleo?
Hold on one sec. Okay, my only point was, well, I'll say this much. People have been bitching about the housing tax, because people were out there buying new homes out in Malibu and Orange County, and it's probably happening across the country, but the housing tax being boosted so much, it's like it's affecting the the real estate market. You know, it's affecting everything. And it's like, if you get all these people to leave the country, so what's going to be left here? Okay, so you have the working class people, so what happens? It just becomes like this tight thing where everything is controlled. And then if it gets to the point where people don't ever have to work, what are the people going to be doing? Yeah. What's going to be happening? Is it just going to be like a prison country? You know what I'm saying?
I mean, there's a lot of ways that things can go. I think I think it's a lot of ways that things could go. And I think Donald Trump kind of, you know, inspires the population as to some of the positive ways that things could go, rather than, just being on universal basic income and just fucking being a drone in a hole somewhere. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's ways that we could all be contributing and enjoying the fruits of all of our labor, because really what's happening is with all the technology and stuff like that, we're just going, ideally we should be able to enjoy the fruits of our labor, because all of our forefathers, our ancestors and stuff like that all work towards us not having to work so hard. That's why all of this progress has been happening in the first place. All the technology, all the inventions, every machine that exists is just to make our lives easier. So if we get into the apex of that now, where it's going to be no work necessary for a human being to do, I think that's supposed to be a net positive for people. It's supposed to be net positive for the human race and the planet. You know what I'm saying? Because we should be able to come up with solutions to clear, whatever negative effects that humanity has had on the planet. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So you give people money to live. What do the people do with their time? Well, we encourage people, and then this would affect the market as well. And with goods and services, just going in a much more natural route, people being encouraged, hey, you have community gardens. Let's get these gardens up. Let's make the homes more eco-friendly. Try to break. I feel like I'm sounding like Jacques Fresco, and I know in my head that's not the direction they're trying to go. I'm like over here, like talking about real reality, which is like, a fantasy. So this is my little fantasy planet, and then this is the reality here. And it's like,
see, that's the thing. It's only the reality, because anything that's manifest currently is just an old thought.
Yes.
It's old thoughts from old people.
Mm-hmm.
Been alive when this version of Earth was conceived in the mind. So it's our responsibility as the new adults to start imagining the Earth in the way that we want, and start, you know what I mean? It's time to be delusional, and it's time to be intentional about what we actually allow and what we want. You get what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were telling you that through the music and the movies. So when Rihanna and Party Next Door, Chris Brown and them, they were all talking about sliding to the other side. So we're at the peak of which what they were talking about was, it's to come. So you had all that time to choose what side you was going to be on. They gave you the internet. They gave you social media. They threw everything at you to make money. Everything. That's why I said it felt like the 80s again. So it's like, all right, I hope you got your tickets, kids. We gave you time. We gave you a good 4 years. Some of you got killed off, but some of you are still here, making it possible for you to get money. You know what I mean? And everything is about to change. Things are going to change in a major way. So either you took care of your business when we gave you the time, or you're going to need help, and, you're going to have to, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. And we still have time.
See what happens. But positive thinking, that's what Angie's trying to say. Whatever you guys have cooking up in your head, even if you're watching these horrible movies and stuff, just always think of positive, and because all that brain power together is what creates, you can't project on a screen if there's no projector, and that's the populace, the body of people.
Yes, ma'am. And we all still have a lot of time. You get what I'm saying? All this stuff is not going to roll out overnight. Is over time it's going to roll out, which is good, because it gives you a chance to kind of look at everything and do your own research and find your place. You get what I'm saying? Yes,
because when you say find your place too, Ange, around this time I felt very overwhelmed, because there was just an abundance of information, just so much new stuff, and then you're trying to balance that and learn new things while at the same time trying to run your own life. So I think it's smart to pay attention to what it is you're really good at. And my thing is creativity. Once I try to stray from that, that's my whole spiel. That's my whole everything. So when you find your place and just find a way to, help others with it, and use it in a resourceful way. How can you use creativity to, better the planet? How you plant things, types of herbs. Like, there's just so much to it. If we can get back to that, that'd be great.
And I think you can. It's really just to have your individual focus and understand what you like. You know what I mean? We creative people.
Do it for the children. Do it for the children. Do it for us.
Exactly. That's it. You keep your focus on the kids, and that's why I think a lot of like really evil people, they want us to forget about children, because if you forget
Yeah.
about children, you forget about the future, because what is there to,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
We got you worried about masculine and feminine. Who's gay? Are you a it or he or she? That's not
Exactly.
important. What about the kids?
Yeah.
Nobody cares. It's got to be the kids. It's got to be everybody. Because even when I go outside and I see all these homeless people on the street, I'm like, they're just humans.
Well, everybody's
They
a
may
kid,
be evil and
everybody's
wicked,
somebody's
but
kid, you know what I'm saying?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And I feel like that, not just because I'm a mom, but I'm like, this is, like I was telling you when I was at the club, this guy everyone stood around just watching him, and he's wobbling and weebling. And, our homeboy was like, let him just fall. Like, fuck it. He chose to get drunk. I'm like, no, I'm sure if his mother was here and she would sit here and say, he might hit the corner of his head on that table, please, somebody help him. Yeah. Like, you're really going to sit here and the man might possibly smash his head, and then what are we going to do? They, just dance and just keep going on with our lives. Blood on the floor. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
No care. It's just terrible. Watching all those people sleep on the train. I'm like, wow, you have nowhere to. It's just no good. No good. No good. God was crying and I saw it. And I'm saying it's the first time I'm saying this publicly. And you understand why.
Yeah.
So think better, people. If you can't physically get out there and open up a foster home and make sure pedophiles stay out and all of that stuff, think positive for the kids. Think as you would.
That's
for
the least you could
yourself.
do.
Even if you were hurt and you want someone else to feel hurt, just, yeah. No moving backwards. You're going to back yourself up into a hole.
Mm-hmm.
A black hole.
Black hole.
Yes.
Yep. We can't make any assumptions because we don't know what the overall plan is. These people.
Yeah.
I feel like everything was orchestrated a certain type of way. He had a really weak opponent, as far as I'm concerned. She couldn't compete.
Yeah.
Compete. And so like one of his other policies was to do with education. So he's saying that he will collect billions and billions of dollars from schools via taxing, fining, suing excessively large private university endowments at schools that don't comply with his edicts. He proposes, among other maneuvers, such as federal funding as leverage to pressure K through 12 school systems to abolish tenure and adopt merit pay for teachers and scrap university programs. And scrap diversity programs at all levels of education. He calls for pulling federal funding for any school or program pushing critical race theory, gender ideology, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, and political content for our children. How do you feel about that, Cleo?
Let me see. I kind of don't care because a lot of the stuff that's taught is like played around with and messed with, and
Yeah.
So the real history is like it's not it. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's an empty pizza box to me. Throw it out.
I think it's a lot of propaganda is mixed up in the education and it's all been orchestrated in order to keep people in their place. So I feel like it would be beneficial. I think it would benefit Black people to have a clean slate when it comes to education and not be hammered with a certain rhetoric as to where we all come from, because I feel like more than just having a singular history that's supposed to encompass all Black people, that there should be emphasis on doing your own particular genealogical research. That would be beneficial. That would benefit and help and enhance people's scope of history much more effectively than trying to paint every Black person as a former slave. It's not. It actually it negatively affects people.
It does, because I was telling Ange that in first grade they showed us Roots, and it was like, I mean, you might as well have showed me a snuff film. It was just very terrible. Like just sitting there watching someone get whipped, and the whole thing just right after you just hated all white people right after. But then again, those were the teachers and the principals, so it's like, you know what I mean? And then I see growing up talking about it, because it was so implanted in me. And then I'm also going off of how white people have treated me, and even that includes white Hispanics. Don't think Puerto Ricans aren't included. I included, how they treated me. And then it was just like, how you were saying that energy keeps coming towards you. You showed me the slave film when I was small, and then like that became part of my identity. Plus that becoming part of my identity drew all that negative, passive aggressive attitude from these people.
Yeah, because it's like at the end of the day, if you've got someone because it's energy. If you've got this energy about you feeling inadequate, feeling like you're being judged, feeling like you're being thought of a certain type of way, perceived as,
that's what it is.
It's all gonna come across. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're gonna either cower about it, you're gonna cower behind, this history that you are taking on, or you're gonna become defensive and angry about it. So either way, it's just not gonna be conducive, especially if you're in this environment. You're forced to be in this environment where there's the people that you perceive to be your enemy are your
in control.
Yeah, they're your authority figures.
Yeah.
So very unfortunate.
It is. I experienced it at Abercrombie and the hospital, and the dentist.
Yeah.
They talk to you like they're paying you to be there.
Right. And then it doesn't give you the confidence to actually confront them about it. You don't have the
exactly
them and put them in their place, because these people are service providers. These people work for you. But if you don't understand that because of what you've been taught, like, you're lucky to be there. That's the kind of like environment that they're creating. Like,
right,
to have the life that you have, even though people are getting shot in the street. At least you're not there 50 years ago.
Yeah, right. That's how I felt. Yeah, it's like I just felt grateful I wasn't born back then. I'm like, what the hell, living in this circle of fear. You know what I mean? It was just very ugly. And I did not talk back when they did disrespect me. I think I just felt shocked and, a little, I won't say hurt, because I looked at them like I could easily just like slap you or something. But it's like, I can't touch you. It was just this anger that built up, because it's like they could just fire me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's more than one of them. It was just,
because you know that violence isn't the appropriate reaction, because
it's not. It makes you look worse.
Yeah, and not only that, they didn't touch you, so it's not the appropriate tit.
Right.
So the appropriate tit for tat is a verbal tit for tat, but you don't feel confident and comfortable doing the tit for tat.
Right, because I didn't know what to say.
Exactly, and that's the position that a lot of people that this whole entire education system and the racial way that they put every single year they do this Black history where they started slavery. So that's
and there's a movie
that's
every
where
year.
Black people were spawned from, and that is your whole entire backstory. You get what I'm saying? That's what brought you here today. So if that's
not like that over in the UK, is it?
No, it's not. No,
they
it's
didn't do
not.
it to you.
No, it's not. The thing is that the history for people that are, melanated, deeply melanated people, dark-skinned people, because I'm not going to say Black, because I don't believe that we are Black. As you can see, we're all brown. Okay, all dark-skinned people have different origin stories. We have actually genealogical backstories, and people that are the Black people in America could have that same exact experience if they were allowed to do that research. They can have a understanding of who their great-grandfather is, their great-great-grandfather is, all of these people in the history and what they did and what their contributions were, so that they can have a sense of pride. But instead of that, they have this blanket existence that not even a positive one. They sprinkle in a few little positivity where they show all the inventions and basically
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I was going to say that.
yeah,
Look, you're not completely useless. You did something.
you invented all these things, but they always shroud it in slavery. Every single
Yes.
thing is covered in this stain of slavery, and so that you can't even enjoy it. That
Yeah,
accomplishment,
you're always in the Olympics. You're always fighting to get out the barrel and
the
prove
accomplishment can
yourself.
be fully
They
enjoyed
had,
because it's stained with this pain and trauma.
yeah, I'm black and I'm proud. When I saw it on t-shirts and stuff like Sister Queen and stuff like that, I'm like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, ugh, I can't do this. And it's not that it's I want to wear a blonde wig and not be black. It's just I could see it for what it is. I really see it for what it is. When y'all niggas wore dashikis to go see Black Panther, I'm not gonna lie, when Black Panther came out, I already knew it was specifically for the Americans. I knew it. Had nothing to do with Africans at all. That was meant for niggas.
Well,
You got
it
what I'm saying?
a lot of things are encoded with the truth mixed with a bunch of fiction.
Yeah.
They were just an exemplification of that.
Yeah. And shout out to my sister because you told me about my family history.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, I didn't know anything about myself. I knew nothing.
Yeah.
I'm just
And then
like,
when you don't know anything, you're forced to take it and eat it. Or what they teach you at school, you're forced to eat that shit.
yeah. And I felt it made me feel powerless.
Yes.
Then when you feel powerless, you take pride in, okay, well, this is who I am, and you're just jealous of me. Yeah, but what's all that's cute and shit. But what does that all mean if you can't do nothing about it? And it's a romanticized form of Stockholm syndrome almost.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very sick. It's
Yeah.
very sick.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
very sick. And I grew up on that. And you know, when I found out I came from money and, you know, I sat back and looked at my life. I went to Catholic school. I'm like, yeah, that's not my story. And it probably never had to be. I wonder how my life would have turned out if I didn't watch that Roots movie. If they didn't show
Listen,
me that
listen, you know what? Exactly, because your grandmother placed you in a place where life could have gone so many different ways for you.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And the fact that you already had this damage done to you psychologically, it puts you already at a disadvantage, you know what I mean? Because you have a perception of yourself that is not, you know, of a level where you could have gone from that with that.
And then I'm in a hood surrounded by people where there was no logic. Nothing made sense.
Yeah.
Anytime I asked a question, I was talking too much, or I was asking the wrong questions, or I'm too curious. I smile too much. I'm too happy.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like, oh my God, what do you do here? You just lose your mind? Like, what do you do? Just lay back and die?
Yeah. But all these rules. And then you know why nothing makes sense is because nothing never did make sense. First of all, they're calling us black when our skin is brown. That is the first mind.
And we've worked with our team of clinical.
Okay, so now I'm gonna play a video about that talks about Donald Trump's perspective on DEI hires and, you know, all the education, you know, talking about critical race theory and things like that, and where he's coming from when it comes to that, and what his perspective is and what his policy is on it all. So
wonderful.
For men, exploding, and I mean absolutely exploding. While academics have been obsessed with indoctrinating America's youth, the time has come to reclaim our once great educational institutions from the radical left, and we will do that. Our secret weapon will be the college accreditation system. It's called accreditation for a reason. The accreditors are supposed to ensure that schools are not ripping off students and taxpayers, but they have failed totally. When I return to the White House, I will fire the radical left accreditors that have allowed our colleges to become dominated by Marxist maniacs and lunatics. We will then accept applications for new accreditors who will impose real standards on colleges once again and once and for all. These standards will include defending the American tradition and Western civilization, protecting free speech, eliminating wasteful administrative positions that drive up costs incredibly, removing all Marxist diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucrats, offering options for accelerated and low-cost degrees, providing meaningful job placement and career services, and implementing college entrance and exit exams to prove that students are actually learning and getting their money's worth.
Furthermore, I will direct the Department of Justice to pursue federal civil rights cases against schools that continue to engage in racial discrimination and schools that persist in explicit unlawful discrimination under the guise of equity will not only have their endowments taxed, but through budget reconciliation, I will advance a measure to have them fined up to the entire amount of their endowment. A portion of the seized funds will then be used as restitution for victims of these illegal and unjust policies that hurt our country so badly. Colleges have gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from hardworking taxpayers, and now we are going to get this anti-American insanity out of our institutions once and for all. We are going to have real education in America. Thank you.
All right. Now, it's so interesting that what people hear differently from other people, because one thing that stand out for me when I heard that is that he's going to be holding the colleges to account for racial discrimination. So that means that, you know, when they have been excluding, you know, Black and brown people from you know, attending certain colleges and things like that, that we, you know, there will be more oversight for those kinds of, you know, discriminations.
Yeah.
Why isn't that something that people picked up from what he said? Because he clearly said that, like, racial discrimination is not acceptable and it's not part of, like, the American way and things like that.
Oh, they picked up on it. They just don't want to talk about it. Yeah. That's one thing I learned
People
about
were
being
that are saying that they were going to be, because they weren't going to be doing DEI anymore, that they should be that they're going to be, and then he said that he's going to be rewarding, or he's going to be like compensating. He's going to be compensating the institutions that have been or people that have been affected by it negatively. And people were saying that he said he was going to be giving money to white people for being affected by DEI hires, which is in nothing in what he said like really gave that. So it's really odd.
If you don't pay attention and listen to Trump yourself, just people talking on the street will scare you.
Yeah.
They don't know what they're talking about.
Yep. Seems so.
Yep. No
Yeah.
bueno.
So yeah, generally it seems like Trump has like quite different perspective on things and you know, different ideas of how he wants to do things. He, like you say, he wants to cut out all the fluff and the BS from, you know, what America has become over the last few years, and a lot of the focus the focuses that mean nothing, that really it confuses and distracts from the things that actually matter. So yeah. I think the last thing, just one more thing, he insists that on the point of Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare, he insists that he would protect Social Security and Medicare, popular programs geared towards older Americans, among the biggest pieces of federal spending pie each year. So
yeah,
let's quickly hear what he has to say about that. Yeah, a lot of security. So
what if you can't even afford the cat food? Such an art. I'm telling you, artificial and man-made is never any good. No good.
Republicans want to basically hurt, if you really want the facts, they want to hurt Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. They're, you know, talking about cutting, they're talking about moving the dates up. So a person, instead of being X, we're going to move it up 5 years. And what's wrong with 69, they go, and what's wrong with 75? I want to take the money back from China. I want to save Social Security. People have been paying in for a big portion of their lives into Social Security. I want to save Social Security. I don't want to cut Social Security. And no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors.
That's right. So A lot of people talking about Social Security and, you know, the fate of it and the fact that people want to basically take it away completely. And Donald Trump has always been talking about securing that for the elderly and making sure that it stays in place. I don't know how much control he has over that, but you know, at least that's his MO, and that's his feelings about it. You know, we already know, like, okay, he doesn't really want to take that away, you know.